Hello and welcome to Opening Bars. Could It Be Magic is a song by Barry Manilow with lyrics by Adrienne Anderson. Initially released in 1971 as an up-tempo song produced and co-written by Tony Orlando, it was later re-recorded and slowed down as a Manilow solo in 1973 on Bell Records, with the addition of the highly recognizable piano introduction. After a further remixing in 1975, an album and single re-release was made on Arista Records, and then reworked again in 1993 with the original strings and brass intact, but with new drums, bass, and synths, and that opening piano introduction, sounding more like an in-tune real grand piano this time, is sadly cut off before its full exposition. We will look at the iconic 1973 recording. Classical music enthusiasts will recognize these opening bars as the Prelude, Opus 28, number 20 in C minor, by Frédéric Chopin. This piano piece is sometimes known by other names, including the Funeral March or the Chord Prelude, due to its slow progression of quarter-note chords. Jane Stirling, one of Chopin's last students, called it the prayer. What is probably less likely known is that the Barry Manilow version is not identical to the Chopin. It deviates in a few important ways. Let's look at the Chopin original first, and then we will attend to the Manilow version. Here we see the 1839 first edition by Breitkopf und Härtel out of Leipzig, re-entered into Muse score. The original has the repetition of the B section written out in full, but I've added repeat signs here. We are using the treble and bass clefs. We have a key signature of 3 flats and an incomplete circle looking more or less like a stylized capital C, which indicates common quadruple 4/4 time. For your reference and further study, here is a Roman numeral analysis as well. I won't go through each symbol, but suffice to say, you can clearly see a lot of subdominant 4, dominant 5, and tonic 1 chords at work, and some strong movement to other key centers, notably 6, and of course 5, with each intervening chord serving with purpose as a point of departure, arrival, preparation, or progression, moving the song along like the reassuring hand of a strong tide. This is functional harmony at work. Okay, even though the harmonic movement is so compelling, notice that the actual melody too is so melancholic and beautiful, with a lovely question and answer structure comprised of mini arches. Notice that the melody at measure 5 is transferred into the interior voice, identifiable by its identical rhythmic patterning to the opening 4 measures. I should make a special note of a couple of inconsistencies from the original publication as well. For one, the A flat in measure 4 was later corrected to an A natural in the 1878 Breitkopf publication. In addition, a more persistent controversy surrounds that final E flat in the melody of measure 3. The rules of notation would normally mean that the preceding naturalized E from beat 2 would carry over to beat 4 in the same bar. But this was seemingly not addressed nor changed in the 1878 revision. Years later, an Oxford edition of the same prelude makes a proposal that Chopin himself made an alteration to flatten this note on a copy in the possession of his pupil Jane Stirling, and this is in fact how you will hear most modern performances. I like the E natural, and apparently, so does Barry Manilow. Rhythmically speaking, we are subject to a steady quarter note pulse in the left hand octave movement. The right hand melodic rhythm is exactly the same in each measure. A quarter note, dotted 8th plus 16th, and another quarter note pattern, including the interior voice at measure 5. So, my personal opinion of the technique and stylistic attributes of this prelude would be, first and foremost, not to over-romanticize the performance. So, for one, I'd play with no rubato. I also believe that the rhythmic pulse of this prayer must be strictly observed, at whatever tempo you choose. I'm also not sure I would make the dynamic differences so dramatic, and certainly not fortissimo at the opening. I would make it a strong mezzo forte, playing the chords fully, without any arpeggiando, and without any noticeable harshness. I would make section B more or less the same dynamic, but with an extra touch of sweetness and sensitivity to complete the full melodic line, and then recap the repetition of the B section as pianissimo. Now we'll attend to how Barry Manilow's version differs from the Chopin original. The most noticeable difference is that Manilow, for the most part, dispenses with using full 4-note chords. He thins the texture primarily to 3-note triads. You will also notice that beats 3 and 4 of measure 5 and beat 1 of measure 6 are substantially different as well. You really hear that when the A natural is substituted in the interior melody. The harmonic movement in these two measures becomes the basis for the chorus in this song. But let's take a closer look starting at the beginning before we get ahead of ourselves. The harmonic movement in the first 4 measures is more or less the same as Chopin. However, in measure 1, Manilow drops the E-flat 7th to make a straight F minor chord, and the passing note thirds are singled to the topmost note only, eliminating the non-chord tone E-flat. Notice also that measure 2 is thinned considerably. The final A-flat destination is a major third interval only in the right hand. In measure 3, the left hand departs from Chopin, now employing chromatic movement by using chord inversions. Notice here that Manilow also chooses to use the E natural in the cadence at the end of this measure. presentation of the C major chord. I like this, for then we have a bit of an Oreo cookie approach to the tonalities, C minor on the chocolatey exterior, and all major for the middle. The most interesting changes come in measures 5 and 6. Look at the left hand. It deviates from Chopin's octaves. It begins with a perfect fifth, then a minor 6, minor 7th, major 7, minor 7, and then an augmented 6, which looks the same as a minor 7, but complements the function of that French 6 with the A flat in the root to the dominant chord G. And then he reverts back to octaves, using the 7th of G7 as the bass note, that is the G7 chord in third inversion, passing and then leading us back to the tonic in first inversion in measure 7. I'll play these two bars twice, measures 5 and 6, Chopin's version first and the Manilow after. Measures 8 and 9 are more or less the same in each version, with Manilow using a root G chord on beat 3 instead of the first inversion, and they are functionally the same as measures 1 and 2. Chopin and Manilow both, instead of moving to the E flat 7, the 5-7 of 6, we see a G7 chord preceded by that beautiful Neapolitan 2 to the G7, with the exquisite E flat appoggiatura, of course, leading us back to the C minor, as we would expect. That's really nice. There you have it. I'll play both renditions now. One bar of Chopin followed immediately with the equivalent bar from Manilow, so you can hear the differences in texture and harmony where applicable. There are many examples where classical music has been used as a compositional basis for popular music. A web search will turn up Baroque greats such as Johann Sebastian Bach and Johann Pachelbel being liberally quoted by the likes of Procol Harum, Sky, the Beach Boys, and the Pet Shop Boys. Classical and Romantic period personalities, too, receive much attention. Composers such as Fauré, Schubert, Mussorgsky, Chopin, Elgar, Rachmaninoff, Beethoven, and Prokofiev, appropriated by S Club 7, Beyoncé, David Shire, Radiohead, Muse, Eric Carmen, Billy Joel, and Sting. Pablo Picasso has been, correctly or incorrectly, attributed as saying, "Good artists copy, great artists steal." And Igor Stravinsky, too. "A good composer does not imitate, he steals." Of course, artists have long incorporated work from other artists and traditions as accepted practice, but I suspect these quoted sentiments express more than the simple illusion of theft that they suggest. I think it means that all creative musical ideas are inevitably born from a synthesis of one's fully lived human and sonic experiences. The vital distinction is to know the difference between imitation and inspiration in the creation of your art. I hope you enjoyed your lesson today. Remember, don't just play notes. Make music. Until next time, thanks for listening.